Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Give us just another minute or two to let everybody else join and then we'll get started. Good morning. Just another minute or two as more attendees log in and we'll get started. All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Deliverable-Based Information Technology Services Marketing Forum. This is going to be a redo from the October 15th one. We are glad to have you with us today. Next slide, please. Before we get started, let's cover a couple of housekeeping items. Just a reminder that you can change your audio by switching between computer and phone. We want to remind everybody that everybody is muted this morning, but if you have questions or if you have something to address with the group, please open your Q&A box and put your questions in there, and we'll take some time to answer those as we go today. But before we get started, if you would, please raise your hands real quick and let us know that you can hear us pretty clearly this morning so that we have a good audio connection. All right, thank you for that. Next slide, please. Today we're going to have Vanya, Procurement Lead, Julia, Procurement Lead, Stephanie. She will not be able to join with us today, so Vanya will be doing her part. Marie also will not be able to join today, so Vanya will be doing her part as well. And then Patricia, a hub coordinator. Next slide, please. Today's agenda is going to be marketing forum goals and solicitation scope, DIR overview, cooperative contract solicitation process, digital accessibility, hub subcontracting plan, responding to DIR solicitations / vendor information system, general information for vendors, next steps, discussion and questions, conference closing. Next slide, please. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Vanya.
Sorry. Good morning, everyone. And as Patricia explained, this is a redo of the October 15th. So main purpose today is to have a clean recording with all the information, plus to reach additional vendors that might have missed the previous session, and for us to get enough questions and answers and information from you all on how to improve our DBITS solicitation. Next slide. So the main focus of a marketing goal is to inform new vendors, promote hub vendors networking, reduce costs, promote competition, receive input from vendors, remove barriers, and to get a better solicitation response from vendors to provide enough information so that we have good responses. Next slide. So the current deliverable-based information technology services has the following scope. So we have it into categories that covers application maintenance and support, business intelligence and data warehouse, enterprise resource planning, project management, technology upgrade, migration and transformation, information technology assessment and planning, application development, independent verification and validation, and information technology procurement assistance. These are the current categories, and we are in the process of planning So if there's any new categories or categories in this section that might be redundant, I love to hear from you. And we did got some information on enterprise resource planning, which seems to be a part of all the other categories within this. So one of the suggestions that we might combine that with some of these other categories instead of having it standalone. But that's just one suggestion. So if you guys have others, please provide us that information. Next slide. So one of the things I like to have from vendors is for you to ask questions, to provide input, to let us know what we can do better in the next section. So we like to get clarifications, provide feedback on the upcoming RFO, including the current state of IT staffing market and other aspects. So we're trying to obtain information from you guys today, as well as providing information. Next slide. So one of the things that DIR is very much into is having partners in our programs versus vendors. Why? Because a vendor takes orders and a partner listens to understand the business need. While a vendor is reactive and responsive to customers' request, a partner is a proactive and makes recommendations to help our customers understand their needs. Where a vendor takes a narrow view of the current requirement, a partner sees the whole picture, and they want to provide information to allow our customers to have better solutions. Where a vendor just provides goods and services and data, a partner interprets the data that the customers provide and allow them to understand what their needs are and provide solutions. Next slide. So what's DIR looking for in partners? We want to look for vendors that understand the DIR customer needs and offer best value solutions. We want to offer solutions and delivery methods that meet the next generation of our customers' demands. We want a partner who can deliver on that understanding through offerings to contribute to the overall success for DIR, its customers, and partners. Next slide. So now let's talk about the DIR overview of what we are. We are pretty big. We have lots of sections, but we're going to talk about a little bit what our overview is. Next slide. So this is a good picture. There are 4 sections. One of them is our policy and planning. The next section is our outsource manage IT or STS or data center, pretty much that all go together. And then we have our communication, capital complex, telephone, internet, and SOX operations. Now, this solicitation is for the cooperative contract program. It's more like a do-it-yourself. The customers, we establish master contracts, and the customers will select what they need and contact our vendors and deal directly with the vendor, issue purchase orders to the vendors. So it's a do-it-yourself. Once we set a master, the customers can use these contracts. Next slide. So the eligible DIR cooperative contract program customers. Now, I like for you to constantly take a look at our website under our customer eligibility, because these numbers change, these vendors change, because we are constantly growing. So right now we have 183 Texas agencies and institutions of higher ed. We got 6,200 local government customers, and we have other organizations that are part of our program. As you can see, we got hospitals, first responder, volunteer fire department. They're all eligible customers to use DIR contract. And on top of all of this, we also have our out-of-state customers, which we are up to about 50 plus states that have agreements to use DIR cooperative program customers. Next slide. So what our cooperative contract benefits to our customers, we create savings. We leverage the state buying power to lower prices. We contain best value, and we also create savings through bulk purchasing initiatives. DIR streamlined the purchasing process for our customers, reduces purchasing and contract cycle time. In any normal purchase, a DR customer will take 6 to 18 months to complete a complete solicitation. Where DIR has done most of the work, our customer just picks it up where we left and goes straight to negotiations. They don't have to do all the cooperative and all the competitive requirements of procurement because we do that. DIR reduces the duplicate efforts of our customers, and we access the historically underlies business to provide additional resources to our customers. The benefits to the vendors and our partners are simplifying the sales process for you. You go direct to the customer with established contract that allows you to sell to our customers. Access to public entities and approximately 3.3 billion in sales per year. And we haven't got the 2024 numbers yet, but I assume it's going to be a little bigger than that. Next slide. So here's more or less in 2023 how our sales breaking up. So as you can see, our local government has about 28% of our sales. Our higher ed, 15%, K through 12, 25%, and our state agencies, 28.5%. So you can see between local government and state agency, that creates a bulk of our sales. Next slide. So now cooperative contract, what do we do through the solicitation process? Next slide. So over here, we have a planning phase, which is where we are right now. Right now, for the DBITS Pro solicitation, we already done a pre-solicitation notice. It's posted on the ESBD. We're doing a market engagement. This is our second. We're doing a customer engagement, and we are requesting comments from our customers and vendors to improve the solicitation documents. Once we get our planning done, we go into a solicitation phase of our process. So we're going to do a pre-proposal conference right after the solicitation is posted. We're going to answer questions, and there's going to be a specific period, so pay attention to the beginning and ending date of the Q&A period. We're going to respond instructions. We're going to evaluation criteria. We're going to provide you with value adds. So we're going to give you everything you need to respond to the solicitation. It'll be posted on the ESBD, and then there will be a 6 to 8 weeks period where we can respond to your Q&A, whatever questions you have about the documents that will be posted. And after that, once it's open, we'll have an evaluation and award process. Now, this is behind the curtains. You guys are not going to have a visibility to it until we're to the next step. But we have to do an administrative review, which means, is the vendor responsive? Did they provide all the documents? Is the exhibit signed? Then we have our next evaluation, pass and fail criteria. That is your financials and your hub plan. After that, and your PDAA. After that, we have clarifications, evaluation, and negotiations. All of these are going to be we'll be communicating with you throughout the process where we are on each stage of the solicitation process. Next slide. So what do we do during our planning? As I told you before, we engage with our incumbent and potential respondents through a market engagement. We do forums. When we have opportunities to engage with potential respondents and discuss the upcoming solicitation. So we're doing all the planning stages right now. Next step. So we also provide you, the vendor, by doing all these functions during our planning sections. We also provide you the ability and the information for you to do your planning on how to respond to the solicitation. On October 11, we did a step-by-step how to respond to solicitation training. We went step-by-step on our bid stamp, how to upload your responses. So if you're brand new, I strongly recommend you go to YouTube and see that training. It's very valuable. But we also allow you to identify and share we're going to share the scope with you, and you're going to tell us what's going on in the market changes. We're going to provide you with DIR lessons learned so that you can improve on the opportunity. And we expect you to do the same for us. Identify and share with us what have we done right, wrong during this planning process. We're going to ensure that good standing with the state of Texas. So this is your part. Please make sure that your Secretary of State and your franchise tax with the controller are in good standing and are correct. We must have active and correct information on your registration with the state of Texas. And your name and corporate address is the key here. So make sure your name is correct and all your documentation, make sure you're consistent, that your Exhibit A and your registration all match. Make sure to use your corporate address on your registration versus your local office or the person that is registered, your registered agent. So make sure that is also correct, okay? This is the opportunity for you to engage with hub partners so that you can fill out your hub plan and you have enough information, enough hub partners to complete your hub plan. You're going to obtain letters of authorization if that's applicable based on the solicitation we're doing. We're going to get accurate VPETs if it's applicable to the solicitation. Every single solicitation will require a PDAA, and you will have to submit that. 0 scores not allowed. So make sure that you read the PDAA is about your company, not the products or services that you're providing. Keep that in mind. Next slide. So then we have our solicitation process, step 2. So we're going to post a solicitation. It is your responsibility to download the electronic business daily documentation for the posting. DIR does not provide those documents to you. So before anybody asks, it will be posted on the electronic business daily, and you must download it from that location, the actual documents. Anything you get from any other source is not official. So make sure that you do it. So then the solicitation is going to include background, requirements, instructions, evaluation, key dates, and you just need to pay attention to all the things that you are going to read on the solicitation packages to understand how to fill out those documents, which are very critical for you to get or not get an intent to negotiate proposal, okay? So DIR entertains vendor questions during the solicitation. We try to answer all of your questions. We need to make sure that we are clear and that there's clarity, so there is no assumption on your part. So we'll make sure your questions are answered, and we'll make sure that you understand the process. It's very important. DIR posts addendums to the solicitation, so be sure to monitor the ESBD. Again, it is not DIR's responsibility to keep you up to date. We do go the extra mile and provide notices every step of the way, but we're not responsible for, is your email correct? Did you get the right person? Are we communicating with the right company? That is your responsibility to have your contact information correct on the bid stamp system, on your information, on your CMBL registration, so that you get all the information that's being sent out through the ESBD and through DIR. But again, it is your responsibility to check the ESBD on an ongoing basis for changes and new assignments, okay? Next slide. Again, doing this, we're going to establish designated point of contact. So very important, you all must only talk to the person that is authorized to talk to you. Make sure, okay? Also, you need to tailor your response to the stated goals and objectives of the solicitation scope of work. Always keep in mind, right, that if you talk to anybody outside of, for this solicitation, it'll be me or Julia, you can be disqualified. So that is very important. This solicitation is open. It is posted in the ESPD, the pre-solicitation notice. So the time to talk to anybody else is over. Me and Julia, those are the two people that you talk to. Later on, when the solicitation is posted, you can talk to Marie, so you can have accessibility assistant, or you can talk to Hub for Hub plan assistance. Other than those two things, which will always CC me and Julia for documentation purpose, you talk to nobody else, okay? Also make sure that you address all the response instructions. You must remember that comply may cost you points. So you have to make sure you're answering the questions, that you are relating to the scope of the solicitation, so that your scores will bring you up to a competitive rate, okay? You got to review and review again. Don't submit incomplete responses. They will get a 0 score. Make sure it's comprehensive package. Acknowledge all the addendum posted. Make sure someone with authority binds the response document, which is Exhibit A. Exhibit A will always be the response document that you must sign. That binds your company to your response information. Okay, next slide. So then once the solicitation opened, there's the evaluation. You gotta be patient with the IR. You must remember there are 4 steps of evaluations before we can get to negotiations and award. You have to be patient because some days we'll have 6 response, that'll go fast, but 9 out of 10, we're gonna get over 100, over 150, sometimes 400. And it takes time to get through all of those responses. So the more patient you are, the more time DIR personnel will have to do the evaluations in a expedient manner. Every time we stop to answer your question where we are, that is time we could be reviewing other responses. So keep that in mind, okay? DIR may have discussions with you guys on your response in case there's something that is not clear to our evaluators. I or Julia will reach out to clarify some of your response if necessary. DIR will notify you once evaluations are completed, and DIR has identified the apparent awardees to indicate whether they're invited to negotiations or not. Next step. So here we continue. We're going to consider new information. Just keep in mind that we're going to document everything throughout the process. Excessive exceptions to DIR standard terms and conditions will result in delayed negotiation and no longer being considered for potential award. This is very clear, very clear. 2 things that our folks really need from vendors. 1, if you have exceptions, be reasonable. Make sure that if the item that you are taking an exception for does not have a legal or a code assigned to it, because DIR cannot change the law. So if you hire a brand new attorney that is not familiar with government to tell you what the exceptions to take on DIR terms and conditions, be aware of informing them this is a government contract. There are things as a government we cannot take exceptions to. One of them that is a deal breaker, so that you know, data location is a good one. Another one that is very important to us is Public Information Act. All of these things are related to law. If you got a new attorney doing your review, please make sure to explain to them. Also, on exceptions negotiations for the future, bring somebody to the table that understands government. It will eliminate a lot of wasted time. If we're talking to people that do not understand government contracting and does not understand government contract cooperative contract, master contracts, things can get confusing, especially on the exception list. So keep it short if you have to have it. In some instances, exceptions are not even necessary, depending on the scope of a solicitation. So lack of response to DIR inquiries may also result in cease to negotiation. So once we determine who's going to go to negotiation, we're going to have a schedule. We're going to get to you and we're going to say, we need this information. We give you a deadline. I strongly recommend you keep your contact information accurate. And if it changes during the period between solicitation opening and negotiation, update your contact information so that we know who to contact. Because if we don't know, we're going to say we're not getting any responses. And then we have to cease to negotiate. And sometimes it's just because we're reaching out to the wrong person. So keep that in mind. Next slide. Now, Marie is not here today to discuss the detail of digital accessibility requirements. However, she has a lot of information online. She will be here for the pre-solicitation conference after the RFO is posted, and she will go through this. Between now and then, if you need assistance, Marie is always available, and she's very good at what she does. So I'm going to go through the slides real quick, just to give you an ideas. But as far as digital accessibility training, digital accessibility information, she's the person to talk to. Next slide. Now, one of the things about digital accessibility is that it is a requirement of law. Chapter 2054, Chapter M. So keep in mind that not just accessibility is the law, it also gets updated. So when we're talking about WC3, WCAG 2.0, make sure that at the time of the response that you check those numbers to make sure you're using the latest forms possible, okay? And some accessibility requirements is going to meet the scope and some will not be, it's just not necessary. So we will discuss that in the scope. Which forms you need, which forms you don't need, that doesn't apply to the solicitation at hand. Next slide. So basically, these are some of the documents we talked about. The PDAA, policy-driven adoption, that's about your organization, not your product, not your service. The VPATs, ACRs, now we call them VPATs, but they're called ACR. Those are for software, for products, platforms. So there's a lot of things that gets into the VPAT section. So if you're not confident that you need or don't need one, depending on what you're proposing, you ask Marie and she'll be very good at telling you. The VADSER is something that it's required on all development applications, which this scope is covering. So you will fill out a VADSER if you are a developer, because we need to know what kind of accessibility you have implemented into your development process, okay? Next slide. So we'll talk more about the PDAA and she's going to explain to you. The key thing I want to tell you here is that it comes on the Excel file and I want it returned on an Excel file. Do not PDF your PDAAs and make sure you don't have a 0 score, because if you do, you're going to have to redo it. Okay, next slide. So this is some of the PDAA metrics that you're going to come across. And when you get this PowerPoint, the PDF of the PowerPoint, read it in detail so you can understand it. Next slide. So VPATs, it might not be applicable to this solicitation because you're not selling any products and you're not selling software under the scope of this solicitation, okay? You're going to use the software to develop or to provide assistance or to do a web development, for example, but you're not going to sell software under this solicitation, okay? So if we do have some VPAT requirements on the solicitation, it'll be specified on the document itself. Next. This is some of the stuff that you will find on the VPAT document, the sections that you fill out for the VPAT. Next slide. And this is some of the conformance that you have to follow for the success criteria. And like I said, you can take one of Marie's class and she will detail this stuff for you very, very specifically. Next slide. So VADSERS, as I told you before, is for development services. So you are doing the development section of this solicitation. You will need to fill out a VADSER just so that we know what your development practices of accessibility are. Okay, next slide. So these are some of the questions that come on the VADSER forms for you to understand how do you include accessibility functions into your development? What skill and training resources do you provide your developers for accessibility? Types of development and testing tools for accessibility. So those are the things you're going to look at when filling in your VADSERS, okay? Next slide. So here's some of the training information we've been talking about. So if you're new and you need to understand more, state accessibility at dir.tex.gov and request to be part of one of her trainings. She has tons of them and you are welcome to participate so you understand the requirements, because Texas, it is required. If we don't do it at our level because of whatever reason, you have to do it at the customer level for sure, because they legally have to provide accessibility documents to process a procurement, okay? Next slide. So here's some more information about accessibility. These are websites and that you can go to and understand and take templates and review the requirements. Next slide. So here's Marie information, which will be in this PowerPoint when you get it. So you can contact her. Next slide. So now I'm going to pass it over to Patricia, and she is going to discuss the Hub subcontracting plan requirements for this solicitation.
Thank you, Vanya. My name is Patricia Robbins, and I'm a Hub coordinator at DIR. Next slide. All vendors will complete a Hub subcontracting plan or HSP. Please visit the link provided for the most current approved copy of the Hub subcontracting plan. Please do not modify this document. It is an editable copy. Next slide. All respondents, Hub and non-Hub, are required to submit an HSP. Failure to submit a completed, signed HSP will cause your response to be rejected. This is a pass-fail item. There are 3 ways to complete the HSP. You will self-perform, meet or exceed the Hub goal, and complete Method A, Attachment A, or not meet the Hub goal and complete Method B, Attachment B. Next slide. The Hub goal for this RFO is 26%. If your proposed subcontracting meets or exceeds the Hub goal set for this RFO, you will complete Method A. Be sure to identify all Hub and non-Hub vendors you will be subcontracting with. Include the anticipated dollar amounts and expected percentages. So you will complete section 1, 2, 4, and Method A. Don't forget to sign and date your HSP in section 4. Next slide. If you are going to subcontract below the Hub goal, you will complete Method B, Attachment B. Be sure to solicit a minimum of 3 Hub certified companies and 2 minority trade organizations. You must allow them 7 working days to respond to you prior to the due date of this RFO. Include your outreach to these entities, emails, etc. with your HSP. So you will complete section 1, 2, 4, and Method B, Attachment B. Don't forget to include approximate dollar amounts and percentages. Next slide. If you will be self-performing, you will complete section 1, 2, 3, and 4. In your self-performing justification, you will identify how your company will fulfill this contract with its own staff, equipment, resources, etc. Do not say you will subcontract in the future or if you need to. Tell us how you will self-perform. Next slide. My contact information is listed here. Please remember that the HSP is a pass or fail document. We will provide you a complimentary review of your HSP prior to the due date. You must contact us no later than 10 days prior to the due date of this RFO. Your hub department is here to assist you in completing your HSP correctly. Thank you. Next slide. And I'm going to pass it back over to Vanya.
Thank you, Patricia. So one of the things I want to say about the DIR, Solicitation Information System, or the vendor portal, how to upload your documents. Responding to solicitation documents is one section. Uploading your documents into our response online system is another section. So next slide. What I like you to do is to make sure you are sign up for the Bitstamp portal so that when the solicitation come up, you can actually respond to the solicitation, okay? To upload your documents, okay? Then you need to make sure you can access the Bitstamp portal. You can log in your credentials, make sure you have them on hand and that they are active. You may view a video of setting up your Bitstamp account at this link. We also have a whole section of step-by-step responding to your solicitation through Bitstamp on the October 11 training. I noticed some people wants to know how to get to that on the YouTube channel. I'm going to make sure that we put the links to the October 11 training into the email when we send out this PowerPoint for you guys. Okay, next slide. So if you are a person with disability that cannot respond to the solicitation through the Bitstamp portal for any reason you need help, please contact the DIR point of contact and we will make accommodations, okay? Please allow at least 5 business days for us to help you with this response upload. And it'll be better if you do 10 to 15 days before. Thank you. Next slide. So this is the Bitstamp login. If you do not have an account, you have a link right over here to request an account. One of the things to know is the account is set up by a person, not necessarily your company. It's a person in your company's name. So if somebody on your company leaves or is no longer there, somebody has to go into our portal and update that person's information or require a new access for a different person and make the other one inactive. Okay, next slide. So when you log in, we're going to go through this in such a detail on the October 11 training that right now I'm going to go over highlight. But if you have an account set up, you go into my account and you can update information. You can go into the open solicitation buttons and search for the solicitation that you're going to respond to and click on it. And then you can go into my response and start responding to that solicitation. Okay. There's some information. There's stuff about DIR. And then we have a contact DIR for any technical issues that you might have. Next slide. So now we're going to talk about open solicitations, which when you go into Bitstamp right now, you will not see this solicitation because it is not posted yet. It will, when it's posted, you will know. Next slide. Next slide. Okay. So when the 593 solicitation is open, you will see it under open solicitations and you just highlight it so that you can respond to it, okay? Next slide. So when you are responding to a solicitation, you will see the screen. This is where you're gonna start. Over here, you can ask questions in the system, okay? Make sure to ask your questions clearly so that we can understand them and respond appropriately. Responses will not be in Bitstamp. They will be collected and responded through an addendum. So don't look for answers on your questions in Bitstamp, okay? Next slide. So You always have the detailed buttons description, respond to a solicitation, view a response, ask a question, subscribe. What is the subscribe to a solicitation? That button is so that whenever DIR does addendums, you will receive a notice. Make sure you subscribe to the solicitation that you are responding to, because we'll send you notice that there's an addendum posted, but you have to go to the ESBD to download that addendum, okay? Next. So this is creating a pricing form, which most of the time, these right here are for specific solicitations. This one does not have a pricing form because it's service only, and you will not need to worry about creating a pricing form. One of the things we ask vendors is about references. You can use our system to send out your reference forms to your customers. However, we strongly recommend that you don't. And mainly is because from experience, we found out that vendors want to know if their vendor reference have been submitted. We cannot tell you that. We cannot open anything until the due date. So we tell the vendors, send out an email to your customers with the form and CC yourself and ask them to CC you when they respond. So you will have a record of all your reference that were submitted. Under the respond documents, that's what you're going to upload all your document responses to the solicitation, okay? Next slide. So let's talk about general information right now. Next slide. So one of the things you need to know, how to find out about our solicitation, what's out there, what's in planning, information. So you go through this button on our website, Selling Through DIR. Next slide. You're going to scroll down and you're going to see schedule of solicitation. This gives you everything you need to know about where the solicitation is. And that page will keep it up to date, okay? Now, the Bitstamp online portal, you can get on it from here, or you can get on it from a different link, but most vendors come through here. It's easier. And if you don't have a Bitstamp, right next to it, you can see to get your credentials. Next slide. So top 5 reasons evaluation contract negotiation are delayed or terminated. Incomplete responses, missing pricing form when applicable, incomplete hub plan. By the way, not signing your hub plan is incomplete a hub plan. So signatures are important. Missing your VPETs and PDAAs, excessive of material exceptions, vendor information or responses not matching what's listed in the Duns and Bradstreet. So if a person falls financial, that's one of the pass and fail. You either pass or you fail. It's based on the Duns and Bradstreet information, which I strongly recommend you go there right now and find out what your company score is. If it's anything above 9, you will not get a contract. So you still have time to fix it. Go talk to them, figure out how you can get your score down, how to make it so that you can pass the financial, okay? You might have to provide them reports. You might have to provide them some financial data. I'm not familiar with the Duns and Bradstreet, but I can tell you that if you have a score of 9, you will be disqualified. Financial, you will not pass the financial stability section of the evaluation, okay? Next slide. So things where you can find information. We got your Texas Open Data Portal. You encouraged to keep up with the ESBD. And any more information, you can always visit the controller's webpage. And I strongly recommend you maintain your CMBL registration. It's not a requirement to get a contract, but it sure helps your company on getting notifications. So having a CMBL active registration allows you to get data, lots of notices from the ESBD, because if your CMBL account is not active, the law says you don't need to get any notices. But the ESBD uses the CMBL by object codes. So NIGP codes, make sure you got the right ones selected for your registration so the ESBD can match the commodity codes and send you notifications of opportunities that might match your company requirements. Okay, next slide. So did you all know that DIR has a YouTube channel? And it's not just for customers, it's for vendors. And you can search the YouTube channel for all kinds of training for yourselves. And if you have more information, so you have your DIR procurement webinars right there. Just check the list. You have training for vendors. So use this channel to the best of your ability in order to get information. Next slide. So here's some information that you need to know. If you have general inquiries regarding the RFO, the solicitation documents, you will contact me or Julia. We are core procurement leads together on this solicitation. For inquiries regarding bid stamp, VIS contact, you can contact Stephanie. If you can't get a hold of her, you can contact me or Julia and we'll help you. For inquiries regarding Hub, you will contact Teresa or the DIR Hub mailbox, and they will answer you and help you with anything you need to fill out your Hub subcontracting plan. Next slide. So what do we do next? Go ahead. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to release the RFO. We're expected sometime late November, early December. I know some vendors have said that that time has a lot of holidays and they're concerned, but don't worry. We are going to have this thing on the market for quite a bit. So those holidays should not affect the timeline of responding to the RFO, okay? The next thing, we're going to have a conference, a solicitation pre-proposal conference. This is going to be about 1 to 2 weeks following the RFO. And if the 2 weeks fall within the holiday, we can have a second one. We can always adapt if we need to. But the pre-solicitation conference will be on YouTube, DIR YouTube. So you can always go back and listen, okay? The RFO posting time is going to be 8 weeks, approximately 8. Sometimes it can be more depending on how difficult the solicitation response is going to be, okay? Responses must be submitted specified time. Guys, when that 2 o'clock hits, the button for submitted goes away. So if you call me and say, I can't see the submit button, I'm going to say, what time is it? It's over 2 o'clock. It is done. There's nothing nobody can do. It's the law. Okay. So make sure that you do it early, that you put in your stuff. You keep it up with your response and bid stamp and press the submit button way before the deadline. Okay. Adhere to the points of contact. Make sure you contact only the individual listed on the hub on this slide in order for you not to be disqualified for contacting the wrong people. Okay, next slide. So now I like to open up for questions and discussions. Patricia can read the questions and I will answer them or Hub will answer them.
All right, yes, ma'am. So the first one says, we haven't seen any implementation or upgrades or production support for IBM Tririga software, which is used by state currently. Is this outside of DIR? Can you let us know if there's a different channel to receive these RFPs?
Okay, so our cooperative contract software solicitation is currently in negotiations. We are awarding 158 contracts and we already only got 42 left. There is IBM software vendors that are on these solicitations. So if you did not bid on the software solicitation, as far as getting a contract for IBM master contract, it's gone. You're going to have to wait until the new solicitation. Now, other agencies, if they are on their own, they have gotten an exception. State agencies can only use DIR contracts. So if they want to go out for bid on their own, they are going to have to get an exception from DIR. and they're going to have to get approval to go out. If they do that, then these solicitations will be posted on the ESBD. And if you have a CMBL account with the correct commodity codes, you should be able to get notices of these solicitations. But 9 out of 10 state agencies are going to use the DIR contracts. Next question.
All right, so it says, we're trying to find the training on the YouTube channel. Which ones are the ones you mentioned we should review? I know Vanya mentioned earlier that whenever we send the slide deck, we're going to include the links for those specific videos that she was talking about. They're from October 11th.
Correct.
All right. The next one says, for the PDAA metrics, we don't want a zero score. Is there a minimum goal score?
No, there's not a minimum, but we like for you to really read the questions and answer based on your organization accessibility. There's no minimum or maximum. We just like to make sure that you have some kind of accessibility awareness for your agents, for your organization. And you can always send a question to Marie as well.
Okay.
Next.
The next one says, what is the scoring criteria for the DBITS solicitation?
That will be posted when we put the solicitation. We are in planning session, so at this time, we do not have those criteria set yet. Once we write the solicitation, we will have them. But at this moment, we don't yet. I have from the past solicitation, but that is not going to be the same, so we need to wait. Next.
Okay. So it says, does the PDAA VADSR score affect the vendor selection score?
No. That's a pass or fail. If you pass your accessibility, you move on. If you don't, you get disqualified.
Okay. The next one says, when will the questions from the last session be answered and posted?
As soon as we're done today and I collect all the data, then I will put the October 15 and today's session together, and I will post it on the ESPD under the pre-solicitation notice.
Okay, this one says, will firms with previous DIR experience score higher than firms without DIR experience this time around?
Nope. So guys, the one thing that is misunderstood throughout the vendor community is that if you are a current DIR vendor, you automatically gonna get a contract. That does not compute. DIR is a competitive program, and at all times, okay, when we do a resolicitation, that means just that everything is brand new. Everything in the past goes away. This is a brand new solicitation. The vendors will have to do a good job at responding to the solicitation in order to qualify to move forward into a new contract. So this is all brand new. Past is gone. We have to resolicit these contracts every 4 to 5 years. Therefore, nothing in the past is going to be valid. So please, pretty please, do not copy and paste your answers from last year, because the questions might be different, okay? So, in one of the questions I was asked at the one of the trainings at DIR Connect was, how come vendors that were in such that were previous vendor with lots of sale didn't get a contract this year around for ITSEC? And the answer was, they didn't put as much effort into the response documents as the new vendors that got contracts, because it's all brand new, what you did in the past. And you can tell when you copy and paste answers that don't match the questions. So be diligent and start new and make sure the information you're providing is accurate to the questions so that you can get a good score.
Okay, the next one says, what characteristics of a marketing plan have been successful for incumbent vendors?
Marketing plan. Well, that's a good question. I would have to have a contract manager answer that. So how about I'll put that answer on the ESPD, because I really couldn't answer that since I'm not a contract manager and I don't follow up with marketing plans. But I can tell you that you need to make sure you're not giving us selling your company. I need you to tell us what you're going to do to reach out to our customers to create sales. That's your marketing plan. And that you have a dedicated staff that is going to pay attention to our customers and give quality services to them. Okay. But I'll get answers from the contract management group and I will have a better answer for you. Next question.
It says, where can we find the DIR's terms and conditions? How do we know which terms and conditions are non-starters?
Based on, you will get the DIR terms and conditions attached to the solicitation. Right now, we're in the process of getting that ready through the planning. The legislature's in session. Chances are we'll have new laws and things that have to update the terms and condition. But the way you know terms and conditions that are not what I call, it's deal breakers, check to make sure there's a law or a subchapter or it's a reference to the law. If it is, there's not much we can do. Okay. Next slide. Next question, sorry.
This one says, regarding the DIR experience scoring question, we had a previous debrief and the only negative comments were that our firm didn't have previous DIR experience. Will the selection criteria change this year?
Well, we'll see. It all depends what the question is asking for. Sometimes vendors misconstrue the question. Some of the questions that we're asking is, how is your company experience with the scope of the work in the solicitation? And we do ask if you have current DIR contracts, but those are not scoreable. We don't score those anymore. But we will score your experience based on the scope of the solicitation. So hopefully it's gotten better. Like I said, we're in the planning, so I can't really tell you what the questions are going to be or what the score for those questions are going to be at this point. We're still planning, but that is a consideration that you can tell that from the past 4 years, having a DIR contract is no longer a score thing. We want to know so that we understand what the incumbent vendors are doing, but not necessarily scoring those questions. Okay. Next question.
All right. It says, can you clarify about the D&B score? You said vendors with score 9 or greater will be disqualified. Which D&B measurement is that? Delinquency, failure, or SER?
Well, good question. I'm not a financial person. So what I can tell you is that D&B is our finance. So there's a financial review that you have to pass or fail. That is the score that fails, 9. As far as which part of the D&B that is, how about I put that on the answer when I post it? Because I'll have to contact the financial staff that does the review and ask the exact question so that they can provide you a good answer. Okay.
Okay.
Next.
This one says, are hub vendors or partners weighted higher in reviewing potential contract awards?
Nope. The agencies that select vendors based on their hub subcontracting goals will make those decisions based on the best value for the state. The state of Texas does not have a hub set aside percentage of any kind. So it's important that you know you have to compete with all the vendors, and the agency that is going to select the correct vendor for a particular project, they will have to use the hub information based on their goals, but it's not something that weighs any different.
Okay, it looks like we don't have any more questions.
Fantastic. Next slide. So again, I want to close with making sure that you guys know who to contact. And you will have a copy of this PowerPoint with all your Q&As from the last session and this one. And if you provided me any insight, I want to thank you in advance, because that is very valuable to me as I develop the new scope for this solicitation. Okay? And thank you so much for attending. And hopefully we'll provide you enough information to have a successful response. Okay? Next slide. So thank you, guys. And we're going to close now unless there's any other questions. Truly appreciate all of your information and your questions on this process.